Okay, so again, the timeline is going to look like this. As I just said, it's going to be very slow, and Zoom even makes it slower. So it'll be slow for you, but remember what I showed you. It's a lot faster when you render it out as a video. Now again, in video timeline of Photoshop, you can do all the transitions, which is what I'm going to show you how to do today. And you can also do, you know, as you scrub this, all the visual effects. So a lot of animation that you see when you play animation, like in Titmouse, all these effects are in Photoshop. All these animations are drawn in Animate. So design comes from Illustrator, but drawing comes from Animate. But it's very similar, but there are better brushes to draw in Animate than there are in Illustrator. So people who love to draw love Animate. They don't draw in Illustrator. They draw in Animate. And I'll show you some examples. But the point to be made is that for you to do a video timeline visual effect, which is what I'm going to show Kimberly now with her windmill, actually solar panels, right? The solar wind, that windmills, I think that's a good term, you can do special effects within Photoshop. And that's why studios like Titmouse has visual effects done in Photoshop. And what they do is they do these kind of effects and they render them out as video. And so if you wanted this, you could export the background and render it out as an alpha channel. And Kimberly, that's what you're going to do. We're going to build your windmill in animated GIF in the timeline. So there's two timelines in Photoshop, animated GIF and a video timeline. For your purpose, you're going to animate your windmill, and then you're going to bring it into the master composite. So that's what we're going to do for the animated GIF. And you would set up the same document as the video. So that's how visual effects is done. A lot with frame by frame, which is right here, and then composited into the piece that we're going to do on here. So what we want to do, let's save this. So this is your video. So you have your file name. Let me just take a look at your file name. It's DD. Always remember, file names are critical in animation. Super, super, super critical. So I just want to keep this together so that it's easy to find. And this would be, you know, you could say frame by frame. Windmill, right? PSD. Then you would know that that would be the animated GIF, frame by frame, FB frame by frame. Now let's bring in your Illustrator file. Now there's different ways to bring it in. I'm going to bring it in, and Raphael, do you remember the difference between, because you're in my digital imaging class, do you remember the difference between bringing it in place embedded, or if I did a file open and I dragged and drop?
I believe if you just copy and paste actually come as link, well, if you actually embed, I mean, if you import, it come as embedded. So if you pass it to another person or the file is moved or whatever, it isn't lost in the composition on the project or whatever.
Yeah, you're close on that. But the big difference between embedded and drag and drop your file into the existing file is that embedded, this place embedded, forces the image to fit in the document that you're bringing it in. Drag and drop, like I'm going to do, brings it in the size that it is. It retains the original size of the original document. That's the big difference between place embedded and drag and drop. So you see here, I did a file open in Photoshop, a file open of the AI file that was rendered out, exported out as a PSD. And here are all of the windmills, right? So on here, let's get this first windmill, second, and so forth. So now when I bring this over, I'm going to drag and drop it, you see? And because she doesn't have it placed on top of each other, I can do that in Photoshop. So I'm going to drag and drop it in. And now the thing to remember is the size that it is as what you have it to be. Now, this may be a problem, Kimberly, because it's kind of small, right?
Yeah.
You see how small it is when you probably want to, but let's sometimes, just to give everybody a heads up, which is why I love Illustrator files to use to bring into a bitmap program, which is Photoshop, is that the windmill, when it's vector, it sometimes retains its Illustrator vector. So let's zoom in and see how well we can do this. So I'll do a Control T, right? And the thing to remember on this, let's get this out of our way. Space bar, Control T. You don't need the Shift key. So don't use it, otherwise you'll distort it. And double click it, and it is really okay. You'll be okay, Kimberly. It's not too jagged, is what I'm saying.
Maybe there's one of the things is missing, so I don't know. Thought it was grouped.
Yeah, and I have to say that when I looked at this, when I exported file, export as a PSD, I wanted to be sure I could do 300. You want to be sure it's 300.
Okay.
I didn't really make a mental note of that, so that's why I went back, but it was by default 300, which is good. So that's important. Okay, so now that we have this, now what you do is you always have your guides up. And now what we're going to do is drag and drop them all in. Okay? So you can do it one at a time. So what this does is having it filed open, it lets you begin to, bring it in manually, but the drag and drop will always be better than if you did a place embedded. And that's why I wanted Raphael to iterate that, because the context of the windmill. So again, I would actually go back to the original files, because you see how much time consuming it is for me right now?
Yeah.
To turn these things on at a time. You could scale them up to be the size that you want them to be. And that's why it's important to get that turned on. Let me just get these all on, and I can drag and drop them at different times. Okay, so this was the second windmill, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And come back to here. Here's the third windmill. And you see, I'm already confused, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened here.
Parts are, yeah, it's weird. Thought they were moved.
Right, so I'm going to close this. Don't save it, and just reopen it. And when I reopen it, nope, let's open the one that we had. This one. Then I can just bring it over. This one was your second one, I got that. And so now I can drag and drop it, bring it in. 4, 5, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah.
5, and then 6. Okay. And then I can throw this away. Okay. So then what you want to do is you can actually, so this is a little bit of Photoshop tools that we're doing. Let's get this in the order that we want it to be. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, now on here, you notice I can shift key. Shift key keeps multiple selections, don't forget. And you see I have them all highlighted. And now I can lock it, which is this link. And then I can go Control T. And now I can scale all of them. Do not use a shift key. I'm sorry, this thing in the background is probably driving you crazy. Let's not look at that. So shift key, no, I'm sorry. They changed that. No shift key. In Illustrator must be shift key, but in Photoshop we'll keep it properly in its size. Now it's hard and you don't want it to be, so you have to zoom out, but it's basically scaling all of them to the size that you want it to be. And so I'm just going to keep using this as my master file. And this is when, and I'll say okay, because it looks, well, it's a little too big. Let's bring it down. I'm eyeballing it right now. What I should have done, and I'll show you in a second, is bring in the guides. So I'm just going to say okay now. Bring in the guides like this. This is why we have our guides. We love our guides. And now begin to bring them all in as such. Now they should, hopefully they didn't get cropped. Photoshop used to crop these things, but not anymore. And so now I can undo this, undo the link, turn them all off, and work with them one at a time. So on here, what you're doing is getting it organized, Kimberly. And so then this would be the second one. Get that lined up. So you're doing literally frame by frame animation. But you see how I did it as a grouping, so you didn't have to do them individually. So there's lots of shortcuts to do. And then I would have to kind of redo that. But the important thing is you have to get your frames organized for frame by frame animation. So even though you know, you can export an SWF from Illustrator, in Photoshop you have to build it like you would do in Animate, because this would be frame by frame animation. And so you would get your files organized. And you see here you have two kinds of animations. The video is going to be your final format, but for your windmill to animate, we're going to render it with the alpha channel on so that you can just bring that in as a separate video. So you want your animated GIF to be the same size as the deliverable of the video. That's very important. So we're going to go back here to frame by frame and click it. And what this does, let me bring this up, the timeline. Now you have your frames frame by frame. And what you want to do is you want to get them organized in a way that will be the animation. And so on here, I have them grouped. I don't want them grouped. I think I was moving the same one over and over. You would get them in the order that you want them to be. And so on here, you could make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is that you have? Kimberly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is one the same? It looks like one.
Like there's supposed to be 5.
Right, only 5, right? Okay.
I
Yeah,
think there's 2 that look
I
similar.
think this one and this one is the same, yeah. So
Yeah.
let's get rid of it. You don't need it. Okay. So on here, we have 1, then 2, and we'll fix the registration.
Yeah, I need to fix the.
Right, so you start back here to the first frame, and you turn all of them off. And we'll even turn we want it to be alpha, so we don't need this white layer. The only way you can render the alpha is if you have the checkerboard back here. So that's when it becomes important to see the checkerboard, the alpha channel. So that's frame 1. Then you go to 2, and you turn 1 off, and you turn 2 on. And then you go to 3, you turn that off, and you turn 3 on. And then you go here, and you turn that off, and you turn on 4. And maybe I am missing that 5, right? And then, so this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 maybe up on there. I'd have to reopen up to see.
Yeah, I got a little.
Yeah, let's open up your 5 again. Not that one, this one. So I think on here, let's look at this. These two are the same.
Yeah.
You have only 4. You only have 4.
Okay.
Okay, that's fine.
Because I like kind of took the wings and just kind of rotated them. So
Yeah, that's fine. And that's, you know, 5 makes the loop. 1 repeats itself. So a loop
Okay.
definition of a loop is that the first frame is the same as the end frame.
oh, okay.
So that's important.
Kind of.
Yeah, that's important in that context. Okay, so now this is when you have to get the registration together. And so you see here, you zoom in, and you want to be sure that everything is lined up. And this is just, you know, for frame by frame animation. I'm making this be a ballpark right in the middle. But we want to be looking at our timeline, and I lost the timeline, so let's bring this back. There we go. Get this stretched out. Okay, first frame. And I was on the wrong frame. So you want to bring this over, get this right where it is. That's frame 1. Click this. You see how it's off, right? Click that. Bring that down. Click this. Click that. You have to remember to click the layer. And I'll show you some special effects ways to do things as well. And then click the 4th one, which is this one, which is pretty up. And then this one is a repeat to that. Let's take this away. So we have 1, 2. So you have to be sure the base locks down, you see. So did you use the base on all of them?
I used,
The same base over and over again?
yeah, I used the same thing. I just grouped together the wings and turned them.
Okay, so that's all I was asking, because that is really important, which is why we do that. So now when I go back and I click this, you see I'm making sure that I get it right the way it is. So I'll come back to 1. See, I don't want it to move too much, you see.
Oh,
It won't, you know, the one I have is not too bad. Whoops. 1, 2, whoop, got the wrong frame on. 2, 3, you see, and now that's good. And then 4, that needs to be fixed. Oh,
yeah.
let me get up here. And so that's why we use our guides, literally. That is why we use our guides. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and a little down on this one. Over 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. Now, on here, save every 30 seconds. You can highlight all of them, Shift key, highlight all of them, and you can come down and you can go not 0 seconds, but just a second. And then you can save forever, and then you can display it. So you can see what is. So Kimberly, just looking at this, I would keep a circle on all the time.
Okay. Well, it's missing from the two, like the one for some
Right,
reason.
right.
Yes,
So that
it
might have
is.
been my export on that. But if you kept a circle, it would look even better.
All right.
So one, as when you learn animation, one frame off literally just kills it. So, but I think once you put that circle in, it will be rotating a lot better. Okay, but that's in good shape. Now, say she went back to fix all that. Now she's ready to render it out. This is how you render to get your, this is how you render to get your alpha channel. And this is the same where you have all of it rendered as an alpha channel. And this is the same, and Ricardo, this would be the same as it is in Flash. So you come up here to File, Export, Render to Video. Render to Video comes up, and it will keep the timing on this, whatever you have. And you want to be sure you know where you're going with it. So I'm going to select the folder. I'm keeping everything so far on in the downloads. So that's good. You want to do, now they don't have they have YouTube. iPhone, here would be the iPhone here, tablet, or the Samsung, right? This would be one of the iPhones. We did the iPhone here, so that's what you could use. And Android phone, HD. I would actually just do the 1080 here because it will render out that size. So you can keep that, Kimberly, but you can see all the different ones you have, right? So I don't want it to go down, right? All these are sizes. And so just keep it, it'll keep the resolution that you have. And let's take a look, we'll look at the resolution. Oh, here it is, 1920 by 1080. Let's do the iPad phone. So you see now you would really want to change that size. So let's go back to our size. Write this down. You are 1242 by 2208. That is your Instagram. Now it's, Photoshop doesn't have an Instagram, but you have the size now. So the width and the height is 22. So back to exit. Render to video. Now this is, of course, you're doing Instagram. If it's a YouTube, it's straightforward. So here, you're going to change this to be 1242 to 22.8. Should be the width and the height. And now 264 is good. This will be the preset resolution. But look, the alpha channel is not there because you have to change this to be QuickTime. And now it's going to give you high quality. You don't even have to worry about the YouTube. You've got your size, which is what we wrote down here, to be the size that you want. There is the alpha channel, straight unmatted. It's going to be an MOV, which you can import in, and you render. So now that's going to render that windmill, that animated GIF. Actually, if you made, you could export it as an animated GIF. Animated GIFs do have transparencies like a ping. But the important component is that now you can import this into your final composite. So we'll do that when we come back from our break. But I want to continue with this. So that is really the tutorial on utilizing the frame by frame. And you've got lots of tools here. You can repeat and reverse the frames if you highlight them. So this is a brilliant visual effects tool that helps you build, and you can use that, and I'll show you that if we have time when we come back, how to do the visual effects on there. But the important part today is really to get your Illustrator files into the video timeline that I'm going to show you now. So I'm going to drag and drop this so it snaps into, let me bring you up here, so that we can use the timeline. Can you see the timeline on the bottom? Can you see my cursor on the bottom?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you, Kimberly. Because I don't want to be showing you something that you can't see. So I dragged and dropped that video timeline into here. And here are my layers for what I'm going to show you on the video timeline. So you always start with the layer. Like I don't have a layer that is the background. So let me do that now. I'll drag and drop it. I want it to be white. So I'm going to switch it up. This is video. This is Photoshop. This is, you know, switching up fill and background is what it is. So I'm just going to make a white background. So when you do the video timeline, similar to the animated GIF, is you're building it as a sequence. The bottom layer is your first frame that you see. The top layer is the last image that you see in your video, just like it is in the animated GIF. And just like it is in animation timeline, your last frame is the last frame that you see as far as the animation is concerned. So here, when I convert this, let's bring this up. When I convert this, you want to bring this up all the way as you can. And then you want to be sure that you can see your frame in here. So you want to pull this up so you can see all your layer frames, because now you have a different window that are basically showing your layers here, but now they're on a horizontal timeline. So watch what happens when I turn this to a video timeline. There are all my layers. And so now you can begin to build your motion design, your motion graphics in Photoshop as you would do if you were in After Effects. So what you want to do is you want to, I have it all already stretched out. So then you roll over here and you bring back all of the images, because you don't know when you want to put it in the order that you see them. So I'm kind of staggering it right now. I'll change this up depending on what we're going to do on what I want to see. But basically, let me get this so that we can see this. There. Basically what you want, and you can, again, remember over here, there's a mountain. You can make it small and you can make it big. So you're staggering it literally like this. So that's why you want to get your layers organized so that whatever you want to see at the end can begin at the end, and the same thing with the beginning. So let's move this over here. So I don't want these to be seen yet. So I'm bringing these all in, depending on what time I want to see this. And you basically hover over it, and you'll see a little cryptic cursor that gives you the push and pull. Now this one is probably what I want to see next. So I'll leave that on, because maybe I will make it be a transition. So I want it to stay on the whole time, so I will stretch it out the duration. So this is going to stay on the whole time, and for it to fade in, I would use a transition here. So right now, this is what it would look like if I hit play. I don't have anything turned on, so let me turn it on. Nothing is organized. All I'm doing is showing you layers that are popping on and popping off. What I do now is I organize it in a way that is what we call the rough cut. So on here, I'm thinking I might want to do it in a dark color. Let's make this background be gray, a dark gray. So let's come here, let's make a dark gray, because I want to see my smoke, my steam. And so I'll use another color for this. There we go. Now we see it. And so I want to have that. I'll scrub it up. There's a second one. I want to see that. So I want it to be like a mystery. Like, what am I going to see next? Let me move this up a little bit more. And okay, so now that's good. So this is what we call a rough cut. Now, what do I want to see is maybe possibly this circle. Maybe I will have that together all together. So I'll fade that in, so I'll keep that on. And then maybe I want to bring in this circle. We scrub. So I like that coming in. And I like how it comes in with the font. Scrub it again. Not sure what this is. Ah, that's Los Angeles, and I don't see that because it's black. So I could turn this to be white. Not really, you know, this was black in Illustrator, but now I kind of want it white. So you can come up here to layers, layer style, color overlay, and make it become white. I don't want vivid light. I want it to be normal. And there it is. There is my Los Angeles. Now you see, I didn't know what it was. Why? Because I didn't label my layers very good. So it would be helpful if I said Los Angeles. So labeling layers is really critical. Really critical. It's a little bit of time consuming for just a second, but in the long run, it saves a lot of time. So there I have Los Angeles and it's white. So I just basically changed it, and you can do that in Illustrator. Again, under layer style, all kinds of things that you can do here. You can do the glow. So I might want to do the glow on the bulb. So let's apply that. Go to layer style again, do outer glow. Now on the window for outer glow, be sure you're on the layer. You want opacity. Ah, that's what we want. And let's make it a little bit orangier. It's a little tough. Kind of like it, maybe bright green, maybe that green, little warmer. It's a little warmer. Coffee is warm. And so right now, I could bring this up to be stronger, right? But it's difficult. The best glows are when you have it pushed all the way to the size, and that makes it a little hot. So I'll keep it at that. Now that would come in as a transition. It would be solid green, and then the transition comes in, but I don't have to do that right now. What we want to work on for this week, which is your homework assignment for this week, is just a rough cut. No transitions. Just what do I see frame 1, frame 2, frame 3, frame 4. Just the timing of how long something is playing. So when I go back, remember, we want to stay slow in Photoshop because it will render fast. And so now I might slow those things down like I have there before and bring this in. And that's what we're talking about as far as a rough cut. Just seeing things in its sequence of first, second, third, fourth, fifth, no transitions. You never apply the transitions until you sign off on the rough cut. Now you see here, my lettering goes away. So all I have to do is bring it to the end. And obviously, if I wanted everything to stay on, what I'm hoping to do on these rectangles is to bring them on from the left to the right. And I can show that to you now because we have time and I'm rolling the camera right now for the tutorial. So let me show you how to get to the next step. But for today, for this week, all you want to do is to keep your board with the notes that I've given you, build the layers in Photoshop so that they're in the, bottom layer, first frame, top layer, last frame, and then begin to open up your video timeline to do that. Now, when Kimberly wants to bring in her windmill, all she has to do is go to the top, because it's more than likely going to be in the foreground, add a layer, a blank layer, which becomes this. And then when you mouse down on this layer, add media. That's when you import your video. Whether it's from Wikimedia or it's one of your animated GIF timelines, frame by frame, with the Alpha channel, you can bring in your video. So that's how you can have things turning on, turning off, being a little bit animated, a little rotation, and so forth, and I can help you with that as well. So that's how you would actually bring in your windmill. So we'll do that when we come back to show you that. But that's the value of getting things. Now here's my, I can also animate this like I was showing Raphael on going from small to big, so that the steam rises, like his plant will rise. And we'll do that when we come back. But let me show you how to get, let's work with these rectangles right now. So I'm going to lock everything so I don't have to mess things up. You lock things because you don't want to touch anything if it's already working. And now I'm only going to be working with this. I can turn everything off. And this way, well, I do want the background. This way I can watch and see, probably need the circle, that would be important. And now I'm going to animate these rectangles that go from the left to the right into center. I could go up and down, and I think I will do that. I'm going to have them rise up like a horizon. So let's do that. So now here I have this, and this is how you do keyframing in After Effects as we are in Photoshop. So I'm going to open this up, and you see position is just like point A to point B. Theoretically, I actually could do that with just position. But what I would like you to do is to get transform to be on so that you can apply whatever you may want, like a scale or rotate, because position is not rotate. Position is point A to point B. In this instance, I could do that. But the way to get the transform, again, is you come up here, you right click, and you just say one of these, pan or zoom. And you take off, you toggle off the resize. And then you select off of it. And now it turns red, and it just changed the word position to transform. So you don't need these keyframes. I don't know why they have this. They should just turn it to transform with no transformation. And now I can bring this up and I can bring it down, but I don't want to be here. I want to be in the beginning of the frame. So I'm going to lock it off a little bit on frame so I don't lose it. And then I am going to lock the keyframe. So now I could scale this big too, but I just want to show you simply on the position. Then I advance it to the end about here. And then I want to bring it up. I should bring out the green circle so I can see it, so that when I am bringing this up on this layer, I'm making it fit. Now Shift key will keep it aligned. And so I want to do that here. It's interesting that I may have, hold on. No, I don't have any keyframes. So I should make this scale. I don't even remember it being off, but anyway, the point to be made is let's get this where I want it to be. Right there. And Photoshop automatically makes the keyframe for you. And that's often in Flash, that's motion tween and so forth. And bring this up. And then, of course, I want it to stay on. So now it becomes a hold all the way through. And I'll bring the hold to all of these because we only have a minute left. And then we'll turn off the video. And I will upload this to my YouTube playlist channel for tutorials. So you want to bring this all the way to the end. And so we start, and let's just see what the rough cut looks like now. Oh, it would be helpful to turn these on. So turn these on, back to the beginning. And I probably will fade in these first three ones, but let's see how it plays now. And that would fade in, and my steam would fade in. And right away I can see I want this layer. Now you see I've got the keyframing, you see here? You see that little icon? That icon says, hey, you just put some keyframes in here, I have to lock it down. So if I change this layer, which I believe I still can, I'm going to put it under and it won't affect it. So now when I play this, theoretically it should come from behind. There it is. It had to fix itself. And now, but I need to have it behind, but in front of the green. So this is where you might be changing the idea of the design to make it be in front. So that depending on where your layers are, it will come in and lay and land. And then it stays.